Starlight Lake. By Radu Halangsad. 2022. Episode 1. The first star burst. Every second, a star, like our sun, releases a powerful ray that slingshots across the deep dark vacuum space and travels with the speed of light, giving brightness and sparkling as crystals in the night sky. Due to its distance to our planet, these rays may take hundreds or even thousands of years to reach a planet's surface like Earth with civilized creatures that dwell. And once it reaches the external shell of a planet, its energy is absorbed, but sometimes the vigor bounces back that causes a time to shift. Professor Albert Jordan explained during his lesson in astronomy, a required subject by the university, to their archaeology students. Professor Jordan, aside from being expert on what can be seen above the sky at night, he was also interested on the phenomenon that time bending could be possible with light. He have grown up with a family that astronomy, physics, archaeology, chemistry, and myths were not uncommon. That made him an archaeology professor as well. What a topic, Dale murmured as she packed her notes to her bag. She and her girlfriends prepared to drop by the canteen to have a snack before proceeding to the next lesson. Lisa, sweet innocent Asian girl, was on her left. Greena, a husky-voiced Australian breed tomboyish girl fully packed with gadgets, was on the right, and Rhoda, a strong and historically inclined and brilliant girl, counselor, and best friend of Dale, followed them, while having a heavy load of books on her back. As Greena approached the open space canteen, catching a vacant table, she made her paces faster than the rest. When she got the right spot, she slammed her bag on top of the table to ensure the owning rights of the space. After she occupied the spot, she waves to the rest to follow her lead. Rhoda and Lisa followed her signal abruptly as they received the go signal, but Dale, halted, looking shocked and terribly horrified, had been shaking angrily of a scene she had been witnessing as she paused facing a table just near the entrance of the canteen. Trevor, Dale's boyfriend, sporty blonde wavy-haired blue-eyed Caucasian hunky guy, was exchanging ice cream spoon with Brenda, a sexy grey-haired bulgy front brown-eyed in a pom-pom suit, undoubtedly and definitely a cheering squad member type, legs crossed with Trevor's. Animal instinct overflowed Dale's nerves that without a second to waste, attacked to an unaware praise. As Brenda scooped to feed the open-mouthed Trevor, Dale opportunistically slapped the girl's hand, spilled directly the freezingly cold chocolate ice cream to Trevor's forehead, and instantaneously dripped quickly ran down to his face to his chest and continuously glided down his underpants. It took a while to have a reaction. After a break of silence, started to have a sound. It started with a loud scream of a man surprisingly struck by a lightning speed attack by an angry, cheated woman. "How dare you!" Trevor screamed. "How dare me? How dare you? What's all these? How could you do this to me? So, what's your reasonable alibi now, huh? You slipped on the table, and opened your mouth to have a scoop bite of her ice cream. Don't you ever say a word, because it doesn't matter to me now. You and me is unequivocally over, and it's final." Dale cutting off Trevor's chance to speak up with intense conviction and bravery that for so long she has been trying to patiently hold back for 3 stretched years since she accepted his offer to be his girlfriend, to maintain her delicate persona, yet she needed to flourish, caused by too much pain and insult which she could no longer bear. Shameless Brenda, without even showing care to Trevor, immediately ran out from the crowded canteen to at least get her pride on her toes. The entire crowd was then going back to what they had been aiming to do like nothing happened, eating and sipping drinks, while the 3 gals raised up with Dale and, instead of having a stress reliever snack, continued to the next class, their archaeology lesson that will set the matrix of their future as archaeologists someday. Professor Jordan have already been discussing few lines before the 4 aspirants came into the class. They slowly swept their hips at a tightly arranged venue. The room was structured with antique frames, century-old jars, and ancient tools that modes the room's ambience went back in time of the millennia. It was a technique intentionally done to emerge his students to feel their future profession. Your stay here in the university is near to its end, but this does not mean it will be the lamest days. To make it more exciting and adventurous, I require you to dig up an artifact that you can showcase during the final exhibit 2 weeks from now. Professor Jordan was staring at them one by one while announcing such a surprising requirement, and continued, "Make sure that the artifact you will present is a 500-year-old piece of art. Take note, not taken from an antique shop. It should be extracted from the surface of the earth. In other words, it is your own muscle, sweat, and brain that are skillfully utilized to own such a precious piece of gem. And it also means your graduation and your archaeology license as a main reward." Everyone in the room excitedly screamed, but for a second, silence just slapped everyone. after sinking in their brain that their journey won't be easy. Imagine finding an artifact 500 years old covered by dirt. How on earth is that possible in 2 weeks without a little trick? All of them, except Dale, was shocked by the announcement because from the time she seated on her assigned desk beside her friends, her mind still can't believe what she just did in the canteen some minutes ago. Hey, Dale. Are you okay? Have you heard Professor Jordan? We are going into an adventure. Rhoda hated Dale with her elbow to disturb her moment, to put her back to the real world. What is it? Dale replied confusingly, disconnected from the human realm while she stared to an antique painting of a good-looking young man like he had been staring at her as well. The frame was at the center of all the old frames decorating the room. We need to find treasure by ourselves to be able to graduate. It must be our own dig up. And not bought from any antique shop, or should I say, stolen from any shop or museum. Greena suggestively replied. Do you think Professor Jordan is dumb enough not to know if it's not genuine? That will just ruin our future. We need to at least try, right Dale? Lisa disproving the suggestion. Yeah, you're right. We just need to have faith and believe that we can survive this last one. Dale exhaustedly approved. So, I have spoken to your other professors and they agreed to give you a study break for 6 days. You are not required to be here in school, but you have to update me with the progress of your excavation. If you need help with regards to the permit, maybe I could be of help. With the agreement that if you find something great, you will share parts of it to the university. You know what I meant. Good luck and see you next weekend in our archaeology group chat room. The professor ended his session, packed up his papers in his antique-looking leather bag, slammed the door behind him, left his students unconsciously unaware, shocked, and paused. One by one packed up and went out the room to head home following the professor's lead. While the 4 close friends approached near the exit gate of the university, Brenda and Trevor, like lovebirds picking beaks, caught Dale's eyes and the rest of her gang. To get rid of a possible battle against prey and the predator, her friends pushed her away to the direction to the gate and walked straight out where cabs were waiting for students to ride home. Some were lucky enough to have their own, but Dale and her closest friends are luckier to have lived just few walking corners away from the institution. Whether they like it or not, they didn't have actually the choice. 4 of them belonged to a family that could not afford to send them to other universities in other cities nearby. Just across the street, facing the gate, is a millennial castle, a well-preserved ton-sized geometrically piled and shaped gray and white limestone bricks surely made it able to grip and stand the hundreds of years of ever-shifting climate and tear and wear of time. Now, it serves as a museum of ancient artifacts that showcases the rich history of the town. Its size, so enormous that every time the students exited the gate will stop for a while to appreciate its majestic structure. Once you look at it, you feel the ambience of the past. If not because of the cars parking in front it, you could say, you are in another time. Few steps away from the museum, food carts of street food were lined up in the sideways to a huge jogging oval irregular shaped park curved by the shoreline of the lake within the midst. The lake is surrounded with limestone brick rectangular benches as old as the castle just on its right few hundred of paces away. White and pink petal lilies floating in clusters, several white pairing swans dating over near the shallow shore, Gothic contemporary styled lamppost erected between 2 benches, random tall century-old cherry blossoms behind most of the chairs, dipodil scattered around the path where bikers, rollerblades, skateboarders, joggers, and outdoor hikers enjoyed seeing, and its fragrance brought an aromatic sensation that fills the entire lake, its unique venue to refreshen the day after the whole day from school and work. Rhoda, despite the tight budget, ran across her favorite food cart to take a bit of a bite after a long day of diet. She called the 3 to share with them an Asian siomai which became her favorite from the day it was sold in the park. Some hot dog, burger, pizza, and pasta were also offered by some carts, but they had been very common. So, they went for something unfamiliar yet dangerously delicious. After their food trip, they went straight home down on a slightly sloping road. Lisa turned left at the first corner, Greena turned right on the next. While Dale and Rhoda walked 1 more block further. The 2 young ladies are neighbors since high school days when Rhoda's family migrated to venture into an antique shop which her parents managed and owned. Their shop is just 1 door away from Dale's. The houses here are somewhat have a contemporary in design. 45-degree pointed angled reddish clay roofing and neatly white painted walls, French-type windows, smoking chimneys, probably with attic rooms, and built-in garage are uniformly arranged across the town block. A sign of peaceful community. Though, there are some huge structures shadowing these tiny humble homes, majority who lived here were members of a middle-class statute. Well-trimmed green wedge lawn was always a welcoming view in almost all doors, with flowering ornamentals growing on its edges, and some were hanging on porches. A scenic view that only on paintings one art critique could expect to see. Grab-bling sound was attracting Dale's ear while she approached their house door. Exhaling after a deep inhale, preparing herself to enter door 008, their postal home address at Lake Road, slowly turning the knob and pushing the door open. Unsurprised of the usual day-to-day leisure time of her mom and her mom's social comrades, playing mahjong, a Chinese game that make use of elephant tasks shaped into cubes, marked with numerical symbols like game cars have, and pile them on the table to form the game. She could hardly understood them because she never cared about it anyway. She was more focused on finishing her studies to lift their status one step higher if ever possible. "Hi Mom, hi pokers." She kissed her mom's cheek and quickly went to her room. "Have you eaten your dinner, dear?" Alicia Craig, pretending to care about her daughter's welfare, continued to rabble the bricks on the table. "I'm fine Mom." Sounded absurd, dismayed of what she witnessed. Slammed her room's door. Jumped to bed, trying to cool down. Her pink and old rose-striped wallpapered room, customized wooden lamp on top of a desk on the right of the bed, and an empty desk on her left where she usually put her bag, a comfy bed at the middle just enough for a grown lady like her, a tall built-in cabinet shoe rack and drawers below, her bed facing a mirrored vanity adorned with carvings and matched with Kachi chair. Just beside the door was a slimmer plastic door to the bathroom. Adjacent to the empty desk was another desk where her Macintosh and shelves of books were organized, a phone charger, some pens, clips, and empty sticky notes. There was also a nicely flower-carved chair, her gift from her dad when she graduated top-notch during her high school year. A place she can consider her peaceful sanctuary. That's what she thought at first, until she heard the banging of hammer and nails below her. Under her room is a garage which his father had converted to a furniture shop. It was still open and operating, even the sun had been set already. Carl Craig, on his early 50s, was catching up to finish a wooden dining set which he will deliver the next day. This was the only way Carl could feed his family, pay Dale's tuition and monthly utility bills, and spare some to support his gambler wife. Unable to seize the moment, disturbed by the nuisances around her tiny corner basin, she decided to go for a walk to grab some fresh air and a little peacefulness. And the only place she could thought of at the moment was at the park. Quickly grabbed her red blazer on, wearing sleep suit under, putted on her flip-flop, and went slowly out her cabin, to the hallway, down the stairs, to the main door, and out the grass-covered lawn without being noticed by her busy gambling mom and her tired working dad. Sneaking is as easy and simple as if she was an invisible girl. Such a thing was not new to her because she did it almost every time when she couldn't absorb the reality of her complex world and wanting to escape, a little bit, sometimes, somehow. It was spring evening. So, the sky was clear. The breeze was desirably cold. Young and old people alike deserved a break from winter and grasped the blossom of winter at the park. Unlike the view that afternoon, that night, the lights from the antique-like lamps' rays was penetrating through the bushes, leaves, and ancient structures. The light was reflecting to the droplets on the leaves like crystals on a chandelier. With only few penny on her blazer's packet, she dropped by to a to-go cart to taste them with her favorite hot and spicy chili dipping sauce. "How are you, Dale?" an old man asked her with concern. He was Jeff Thompson, the owner of the cart, asking her while he prepared her usual takeout order. "I'm great. Never better. Thanks for asking. And please add more sauce." With a fake smile on her face. "All right then, Your Majesty. As you wish," in an enthusiastic tone, and he goes with a whisper. "If you need anything, be my guest, my princess." His gesture of concern gets more intense. "Of course, Uncle Jeff. Have a nice evening, and I hope you will have a sold out tonight." "No doubt, that's for sure." She smiled to the old man before leaving and headed to her favorite spot in the park. The old man responded with a two-finger salute and continued to serve another customer. A young, troubled, broken-hearted, and mentally pressured lady was now on a side where most people didn't prefer. It was one unique spot that she called an extension of her pinky motific room. Here, she can look deep into the sky and dream of a world free from noise and anxiety. She was on the oldest rock bench. And originally a stone bench from half a millennia. It was positioned very near to the lake shore, in time, gradually pushed by the roots of the tree which was planted at the same time it was placed, now displaced towards the shoreline over time. It has a slight inclination not so comfortable to sit on. Yet, she chose to occupy it knowing that she won't have any contending. Wanting to see the sky, she looked above, but unfortunately her eyes could not capture the vastness of the outer space. She had seated where a huge branch full of leaves covered her line of sight. Tired to find another spot, she decided to look down at their reflection on the calm surface of the lake. Although there are few splashes made by the golden Japanese koi fishes under it, the sparkles of reflections from the stars were echoing, bouncing, and dancing over the thin waves like Christmas lights floating on top of the water. It was so fascinating to see how each twinkle brought colorful sparkles, more than what a rainbow could resonate. But one rare replication Dale noticed that charmed her attention the most. A brighter glowing star on the eastmost shore. Distinct from the others, its light was, somewhat, flaming and brightened like a near floodlight with rays emitting independent colors she had never seen before in her life. The force of the light created a magnetic force that held her to come closer to the lake shore. The lake's skin turned into a jelly-like mirror. She looked down to see her image so vividly clear as if she was facing on a real mirror. Every step closer to the lake, aside from the rainbow-colored rays the star emitted, a melodic sound of a playing harp and piano were harmoniously getting into her ears. The music filled the entire venue. It suppressed her from the noise of the swarming people around the park. She was severed from the rest of the packs. Listening to the lonely yet enticing tune, she stared at her face down the mirror like water. Admiring the background of stars at her back, watching the view with sparkles of stars, she felt so at peace she had never felt before. Being scientifically inclined person, she thought that all these things were just purely caused by anxiety that in effect resulted to superficially extreme hallucination. Reality sunk in after a second. She slapped her face to wake up in that dreamy state. But after she felt the pain, she realized that everything seems real. She gazed around the park to see if anyone had the same realization as she were, but it appeared everyone were ongoing of the things they usually do. Except, that it looked as if nobody noticed what she was experiencing at the moment. Everyone were just going on with their thing. She was like inside a vacuum bubble on that site. Inquisitive of what had transpired, she went back to look down into the lake to enjoy the scenery until, an unfamiliar background emerged beside her image. An odd-looking guy, though he possesses charming deep blue eyes, perfectly shaped pointed nose, thick yet well-groomed eyebrows, long arched eyelashes, finely trimmed mustaches, thin warm red lips, oval slim face, wavy reddish blonde slashed hair, muscle-carved visible Adam's apple neck with a dashling pea-sized oval-shaped jade pendant hanging over a golden thickly chained necklace, wearing green satin with embroidered golden thread and shiny clear crystal buttons, flaunted slightly. Hair chest, and moved as if he was alive beside her looking up down from underneath the lake. Without a second to waste, swiftly, she jumped away from the lake to the bench. Her eyes was still peeking to the image. Greatly surprised, startled, and thrilled, wiped her face up to clear her hair to eliminate distraction of what she was seeing, stretched her neck and face with a wider amazed eyes, making sure what she just saw was real, redo her giraffin act a few seconds after, and still the same odd-looking guy was staring at her from under the reflection of the lake. She turned around to investigate if what she was seeing could be just standing right beside her, but nobody was near her aside from the gigantic tree full of orange-red colored leaves. Dale, who was with an intense feeling of doubt and wondering, picked a quarter palm-sized irregular-shaped stone with her hand and without a doubt threw it to the lake. Unsure of her intention whether to hit the man or just to disturb the calm lake. It took a while for her to realize the stupidity she had done. She eventually decided to look down again to the lake to see if her stone helped the lake to show the real reflection back to normal. Huh, that's intense. I might have eaten a lot of street food lately. When she glanced to her image as the only reflection she could see. You are just hallucinating, girl, she spoken to herself. Reassured that she was then back to her normal state of mind. Then suddenly, the odd-looking guy reappeared. Dale jerked even higher than before while covering her mouth as she almost screamed. Yet now, the man's face was not as neat and good-looking as he was a while ago. He was now covering his forehead to suppress the dripping blood coming from a wound. Her wondering exponentially doubled while asking how on earth a man's image got his wound. How was that possible that such an incident could have happened? Her nerve could hardly fathom scientifically and mythically, and how on earth that he moved. Concerned and curious, she did cut a tiny branch from a flower beside the bench and dipped it into the water. Trying to touch its tip to the man, gripping hard to it to make sure that it won't sink to the water, she felt being sucked by it. She closed her eyes as she was pulled down instantaneously down into the lake. Few seconds after, she felt that she jumped back to the bench front. still gripping onto the tiny branch while her eyes was closed. She sluggishly opened her eyes to witness that now, both her hand and the man's hand was holding both ends of the tiny branch. She released her grip upon the twig's tip, staring closely to the man, noticing that he was not at all an imaginary figure but awesomely good-looking tall man standing in front of her. Breathing and real. Both were speechless, staring to one another with strange feeling overflow in between. The young man, at his early 20s, threw the stick away supposing she might use it to beat him like what she did with the stone to his head. "Who are you? Where am I?" she asked curiously, wondering. Before he could open his lips to answer, they hear a bizarre sound to her but not for him, a thundering horses of iron-armored knights approaching their direction coming from the castle just few yards from the lake. They were seemingly in a search for someone. Immediately, he pushed her on her shoulder using his strong wrist to sit down under the bushes that covered the bench to hide with him. That was supposedly his initial plan, but instead, Dale, who was caught unprepared of what will happen, slid to the edge of the lake. Unable to balance her poise, fell back to the magical lake. Like being siphoned by an unknown force, she jumped back to where she came from, shocked, unable to comprehend what really had happened. Momentarily, seated on the bench to catch her breath and to inhale huge volume of fresh air. "What was that?" she whispered and sighed. "What on earth?" she continuously whispered to herself. Still can't believe of what had happened, she attempted to look down to the lake again to see that the man down there was waving at her, not to say hello, but to point her to go away from the lake as if he was a mute man gesturing to her. "What?" Unsure of what the man was trying to imply, she asked him with a soft voice. "You need to go far from here, my lady. I will be delighted to see you again tomorrow evening, same place, same hour, see you then." His voice was amplified through the surface of the lake as he spoke at last with his low manly tone. For the first time she heard his voice, she became speechless to respond. She raised up and packed her food packs and walked away from the lake out of the park, like a remote-controlled doll switch to went to her doll house. She passed floatingly fast in front of Mr. Thompson's to-fo cart like she hasn't seen him. Poor young lady. According to the concerned old man who considered Dale her own daughter, for she was her regular customer since he could remember. She arrived home directly to her room and jumped to her bed swiftly like blown away by the wind. She closed her eyes hoping to continue the dreaming she thought of this evening's scene. Unable to change clothes proper for sleeping, she quietly went to a deep sound sleep.